Over the past 5 years since I became Bishop of Elphin, I have been very conscious of the question about what will be the future of priestly ministry in our diocese. We have some very fine priests working in our parishes, and I know from talking to people how much their ministry is appreciated. But I'm also conscious that our priests are getting older and that we're increasingly dependent on either returning missionaries from overseas or indeed priests who come from other countries in mainly Africa and Asia to help us out for a short period of time, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. In some ways, people probably say to themselves, well, that's a problem for the bishop. And it is a problem for the bishop, of course, but it's also a challenge for all of us to see how out of our own families and out of our own parish communities we could, again in the future, as we did in the past, provide the priests that we need to look after the celebration of the Mass, the pastoral care of the sick, and all the other things that go with the ministry of a priest in the parish. People sometimes feel, I suppose, that there is a vocations crisis and that there's nothing they can do about it. I don't think there's a vocations crisis in the sense that God hasn't stopped calling people. God continues to call, but I think it's more difficult sometimes for young people in today's environment to hear the call of God. There are a lot of other voices out there, there are a lot of distractions, and the big question, I suppose, for our parishes in a way is how can we create the kind of spaces that will allow young people to hear the word of God, hear the call of God more clearly in their lives. We don't find priests and sisters ready-made. They are the young people who grew up in our parishes. We start by calling them to be disciples. That's what Jesus did. Jesus spent 3 years inviting people to follow him. He spoke to them, he listened to them, he walked with them, and he taught them. And gradually, some of them were prepared to commit their lives to follow him more closely. And to some of them, he entrusted the ministry of celebrating the Eucharist and the sacraments. So it's a kind of a long-term project, and it begins with helping our young people to be disciples. Over the past number of months, with our Diocesan Vocations Commission, I have been beginning to put together a pastoral message which I would like to present to the people of the diocese, which is really to encourage us to look at how we can respond to the challenge of forming disciples. But before I finalise that message, I'd really like to have the input of our parishioners. This is going to be the theme of our pastoral assembly in Boyle on Saturday the 9th of November, and I'd like to invite you in a particular way, and I look forward to seeing many of you there, and thank you in anticipation for your presence, and God bless, and look forward to seeing you.